Thank you for tuning into 88.3 FM WXOU. This is on the YouTube page. This is on our WXOU sports account. Thank you so much for joining us, Coach.
Thank you, Harjun.
This is a year where you had a lot of young players. You had three freshmen playing like 15 games. You had three sophomores playing all those games. Talk about the growth and maturity of your young players.
Yeah, I mean, we knew this year would be different than a year ago, where we were heavy on the on the other side of the roster. We had, I think, over 10 seniors and super seniors a year ago. We recruited 13 freshmen. We had 17 new players overall. So we knew it would be a transitional year for us, and we also knew that freshmen were going to have to step up and come in right away and contribute. And they did, not just the ones that maybe played more than the others. Every player on our team, we recruit with the intent of having them add value to our team. Obviously, players want to play, and that's just the reality of it. Only 11 can play at a time in our sport. That makes it challenging, but we value the fact that all of our players worked hard all year in training. The moments that they got to play, whether it was a few minutes or a lot of minutes, it was valuable for the team. And we certainly saw growth. I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of, I guess would be the word, for them and of them. And as I look forward, right, we feel like this young team obviously is going to be much more experienced next season. And unfortunately, we have to start looking at next season already, since this one has ended a little prematurely.
You talked about young players developing accountability at this stage. Does that manifest differently in college soccer versus like high school and youth soccer?
I mean, you'd like to think so. Obviously, I haven't coached high school soccer. They're very, very little experience doing that, and it was over 30 years ago. So I don't know how that is today. I would say that in general, developmentally, right? Uh, You'd like to think that a soccer player, it continues to grow and learn and get better at what they do. And so you'd like to think that they have a foundation coming in. Certainly, we recruit players. Again, we expect incoming players, no matter what year we're talking about, right? But that if you're incoming to play for us at Oakland, we've scouted you, we've evaluated you several times, and so we expect that they're going to be able to play. And to contribute to the team. Sometimes there's a learning curve that's inevitable. We've learned with all freshmen. Um, we don't know if that learning curve for each player is going to be short, long, middle. Like we have no way of anticipating that. But there is an adjustment period that takes place for all high school players, regardless whether they're American, Canadian, or international students. The college game is different. The intensities are different. The demands are different. And so it does take a little bit of time to adjust. And some players, it literally takes long. Unfortunately, for soccer, we play in the fall, as you know. And so literally you graduate high school in June, and end of July, you're training. And then in the middle of August, 2 weeks later, you're playing your first college game. So there's very little. It's very unforgiving. The fall college season for men's, women's soccer, volleyball. Uh, our freshmen have to adapt quickly, and some are more successful than others at doing so.
For sure. The defense that Oakland played this year was tied for second in the conference. And in asking a myriad of Oakland coaches, Greg Campy, Chep Tungett, Jordan Banfield, they had varying opinions on this. What do you believe is the balance between mentality and scheme when coaching defense?
So when you mean scheme, I'm assuming you mean tactics.
Tactics.
Yeah. I think it's both, and of course I am biased towards the mental part of the game, because as you know, I'm very much into sports psychology and those aspects, and so the way that I coach, the way we set things up, whatever it is, whatever topic it might be, whether it's a defensive topic, an attacking topic, a transitional topic, or even set pieces. Uh, I always attack it with the mental side first. We try to coach mentality first. And I don't know that that's because I think it's more important, but I believe that it sets the tone, right? Think about any other area of life. Our thought processes, right? Our mentality, our mindset sets the stage for our then behaviors, at least according to cognitive behavioral theory, right? And so if that is true, right, where my thought processes forms my attitudes, my mindsets, my mentality, um, then that gives shape to my behaviors or my actions, or in soccer and athletics, my performance, which then yields the results, right? Well, if that cycle is true, for me, it just makes sense to attack first the mentality, because that's going to then give birth to the actions, and the performance aspect that then yields the result that you hopefully want, which is we certainly value defending. And we've been a very good defensive team. Through my tenure here, that's been a priority. It wasn't just this year. Last year we were top 10 in the country defensively, um, and so that matters a lot to us. And we certainly, again, a lot of it is attitude and mindset for sure.
You've had experience rebuilding programs. I'm not going to say rebuilding, but building programs
Yeah.
at Palm Beach Atlantic. How do you balance having a team of senior and grad students who have college soccer experience while continuing to build your pipeline of young players?
Yeah, building programs in general, is I guess my career has been, I've not inherited uh, a program that was a championship team, and then I got it right. It's always been either rebuilds or builds. And um, you have to first of all know kind of the vision of where you want to go, right? And that has to be clear. And as you recruit new players, you have to be able to communicate that vision, because there's no tangible, um, immediate point of reference that you can say, hey, last year, the program, whatever, won a championship or what have you. And so you have to be able to be very clear about how you communicate that. And then you have to have, I think, a good plan and a good process, which includes a lot of things. Obviously, I just touched on recruiting. We touched on the tactics. You have to have a system of play, a general idea of a style of play, how you want your team to play, and then you go about building that out. Right. We talk about foundational principles, and then we talk about layering teaching. Is how we've done it here for the last 7 years. And so when you look at the second part of your question, I think had to do with, how do you mix returners and freshmen into that? What's been interesting for us this year, even though we were very young, as we already talked about, we also had a good number of returning players, and those players were instrumental, not just in what they did on the field, but our super seniors, our seniors, and our juniors even, were able to help lead, to help communicate, to help, the cultural elements of the program, both on and off the field. How we play, how we treat each other, things like that. That they are able to help each other, and help the new players understand, learn, and hopefully buy into, which makes it a lot easier for us as a coaching staff, because it's not us, having to do everything and teach everything. When you have a group of returners who have bought in to the vision and bought into the culture, um, it makes things, I don't want to say easier, because it's always difficult. Every year has challenges, but it makes it a little bit more smooth, for that learning process for the new players.
Sure. Um, this is probably the most investigative journalism question
Okay.
we have. We've noticed over the years you've recruited a lot of players from Michigan Hawks.
Yep.
Would you comment on like what specific characteristics that program has that you identify with Oakland?
Yeah, I mean, coming in to Oakland, I guess it'll be 8 years here in February that I got the job. And one of the first things you do even before you get the job, right, is you have to think about a recruiting strategy, right, and you have to understand what would work. And our recruiting strategy, it has been threefold. Has been try to recruit some of the top level players from our own backyard, from Michigan, and there's several clubs, Michigan Hawks being one of them. And they certainly were one of the first ones that we seem to be able to build a good relationship with quickly. Um, that when I got here, quite frankly, there were no Michigan Hawks players on this roster, and I quite couldn't understand why. And so we worked very hard right away to establish that, and we were able to, I think, bring three or four that first recruiting class that we brought in. And then we brought several since. But anyway, so Michigan, including Hawks, including Nationals, including Jags, including Midwest United, and there are other smaller clubs, but those four are your top club soccer organizations in the state. And so for us, that was a priority that we established, like I said, early on. The other one was using my or leveraging my both my nationwide connection, because I've coached and recruited all over the U.S. And then the third one is internationally. Obviously, I have a lot of international connections. And if you look at our roster, you see that, right? You see the Michigan kids make the most number of our players in our roster, but then you see a good number of internationals and some out of state players there as well.
For sure. On par with with most Oakland sports, your out of conference schedule was pretty intense. We've interviewed other coaches. What is your take on the benefit of having such a difficult out of conference schedule going into the horizon?
Yeah, there's different philosophies on that. Different coaches will look at that differently. For me, there's several reasons why I go and schedule the way that I schedule, and obviously I don't control the league portion, but I have a little bit more control over the non-league portion. Um, One of the reasons why we schedule tough, and since I've been here, we've had the hardest or the second hardest schedule or strength of schedule in Horizon League compared to the other Horizon League teams. And so that's been strategic. And for me, I feel like one, this is probably, I'll say to you in importance. One, I think Division One athletes, student athletes, when they get recruited, they want to be able to go play Ohio State and Northwestern, and we played Michigan State, and we played Notre Dame, and we played Kansas State, and others, Power Five type schools, and I think that there is an element of testing yourself as an athlete and playing in those environments that brings out hopefully um, an awareness, a motivation, and as well as this edge. Um, and again, I think competitive athletes want to measure themselves against the best. The second reason has to do with preparation, and I've always believed that certainly you could go the other way. You could play a really soft or easy non-conference portion of your schedule, and maybe if I would have that philosophy, I would have a lot more wins as a coach. But for me, I think about scheduling as okay. Well, we have to prepare our team to win our league, and in order to win our league, we have to be able to beat some of the top teams in our league, and so we need to prepare ourselves and play the highest level opposition possible before league starts, so that we have learned things about ourselves. We have learned what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, how do we match up, and hopefully, have gained some level of confidence, even if you might not win that game. And this year was tough. Those two games. We were found out in terms of how young we were, but a year ago, right? we tied Northwestern. We tied Michigan State, for example, right? And so even in those results, and a tie in soccer, obviously, it's unique in our sport because we tie, right? Other sports don't tie. But a tie is not a negative result when you go into Michigan State and who end up winning the league, their league, and tie them there, or you tie a Northwestern who was nationally ranked, or you beat DePaul at DePaul, right? So those games should give you, regardless of the score, they should give you a sense of competence and a sense of confidence as well.
For sure. Now shifting gears more towards you. You've worked on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was an initiative that started in our athletic department during COVID year, and all the social turmoil that we were experiencing, right? Not just related um, um, to COVID, some of the other difficult things that were happening with the. I don't need to explain this to everyone, right? But all the racial tension situations that were happening, and so the department started that initiative, and they asked me to serve in that committee, which I welcomed and I was excited about. So for me, it makes sense in our sport. I'm biased, right, as a soccer coach who who loves this game, but also as an international student when I came to the U.S. And I've lived all over the world. I'm what's considered a third culture kid, which basically means is you're in your formative years. When you're developing as a lot of things, your personality, your values, all those things, you are raised in a culture different than that of your parents. And so I have an understanding of inclusion and diversity that's comes in a unique lens because of my own lived experience. But I've also seen, it's interesting because I've seen, I've been part of both. I I've been part of privilege in my own country of Argentina because of personal aspects. My mom being this gets it weird, but it's personal, and that's okay because you've asked. So, my mom is a famous singer, right? And so there's a lot of privileges that I grew up with because of that. And then coming to the U.S. To come to college, where not that I took advantage of those privileges, but they were there. Um, and some fun things, including getting to play a game with Maradona, which is the greatest player of all time at that point, and then meet Messi and things like that. That is nothing that I did. That's privilege, right? It's you get to experience something, um, but it's not anything that you've done. And so that's to me the definition of privilege. And then coming to the States, where I experienced some discrimination and some racial things that directed at me, right? And so I've lived through both, and so I think that has put me in this unique position because of my lived experience, that how I understand inclusion and diversity in a way that I think I end up being kind of a bridge, I think, in helping people understand different perspectives and empathize a little bit more with other people's lived experiences. And so that's why I am so that's so near and dear to me, is because I think it's one of the greatest challenges we have as a society, as human beings, is discrimination and racism and sexism and all the isms. And so for me, it all starts with individuals. And so that's why, for example, we did the Red to Racism initiative with our team, and it's all about um, creating educational opportunities that we can learn and discuss things, but then also be able to um, encourage and empower each individual to be a change agent when it comes to calling out the wrongs of racism, of sexism, of discrimination, for any of the other reasons that humans discriminate against each other. So I'll continue to serve in that capacity as long as I'm asked to, but more importantly, I hope to live in a way that that exemplifies being inclusive with people that are different than me. And I have different beliefs, different backgrounds, and I see beauty in that. And so that's what I hope to encourage others to do as well.
Perfect. We're coming down to our last two questions
Yeah, yeah,
here.
yeah.
Um, these are more general questions for our audience. What do you believe are traits of a good head coach?
Oh, I don't know, because if I answer that, I'll try to answer that without it coming across as self-serving. I think in the end, right? I think I think being a good head coach is very difficult, um, especially in today's environment. I've been doing this. I've been in coaching since 1994, and I started in 1997 as a head coach. And so I was very young when I started in this profession. I know I've made way many more mistakes than I care to admit, and I've been you know a work in progress as a coach, as a head coach. And one of the things I think is that you have to have humility and understanding that you are a work in progress, that I don't have all the answers. The game of soccer is way too big. It's way too complex for anybody, any coach to say, well, they have the answers, they have the way, they have the ticket, right? There's many different ways to play our game. So even tactically, right, I'm always trying to learn. So I guess that characteristic of a growth mindset, I think, is important for a head coach. Communication, I think it's a key characteristic that a head coach has to have. So humility, growth mindset, communication, and I think in the end, it is all about relationships. And so, trying to build relationships that are meaningful, that are impactful. Again, for me, I see my position as one of it is a privilege to be a head coach. I worked very hard to get here, but it is a privilege. And so what I do with that is try to help add value to anybody I come in contact with, and certainly that includes the student athletes who have been entrusted under my care and my leadership. And um, trying to, within the challenges of I'm still the decision maker and who plays and who doesn't, and in the end, that creates a challenging dynamic, right, with 18 to 22-year-olds who just want to come and play, and sometimes they might not understand that they're not playing, and it's a struggle, and we know how hard that is. Yet at the other end, we're being pulled with the obligation of you coach, and the expectation of the department and fans and parents and alumni is you got to produce and you got to win, right? And so those are two opposing forces. I haven't figured it out, if I'm honest. I struggle with those two opposing forces, but I hope that in my honesty about that struggle, and that in my transparency, that people see that at least I'm a genuine human being that cares about others, and I do try to create an environment that will help add value to them beyond what they learn about soccer and on the field. I feel like all the sports psychology stuff will be useful for them, and I know it will be. Beyond their years of playing college soccer when they come back years later, right? And they say, hey, I'm still using this, or I've learned this, or that principle you taught me has been so important for me as a mom, or in my job, or whatever it may be. So that's the most rewarding aspect as a coach.
Well, you took the last question out of my mouth. So, we'll switch gears with this little fun one. One of the best known facts about you, coach, is that you're a huge fan of Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
Would you care to explain a little bit about how that started? What do you love about Lionel?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm Argentine, and he's Argentine, so that's the easy answer, right? And the reality is, I don't like Messi. He's ruined the game for me. Like literally, like I was telling this to my wife the other day because like when he retires, he's ruined it. Like I just don't know if I want to watch anymore. And I've loved this game all my life, and I'm sure I'll keep watching, right? So I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but he's just so special as a player. He does things, and there's a lot of good soccer players. It's not about debate or who's better, who's worse. There's a lot of good soccer players that I've had kind of the privilege to watch over lifetime and seen video of other great players. Uh, but for me, what Messi does is he gets you off your seat. He does things on the soccer field that are unexpected still, which is incredible that he's done this for such a long time, right? That he literally like I'll watch I will prioritize watching a Messi game. I don't care if it's a friendly. I don't care if it's with Miami. I don't care if it's with whatever. Because I think in watching him, right, it's one moment of magic, of incredible, out of nowhere, just magic. But what I admire most about him is how humble he is, and who he is as a person, and not just as a soccer player. And that's why I admire him the most. He's been a great ambassador of my country. Um, what we saw this last World Cup is unheard of, where all these other people from all these other nations were rooting for Argentina. It had nothing to do with Argentina. It had to do with them wanting Messi to win. And that had nothing to do with his talent. I think it had a lot more to do with who he is as a human being. So for me, he's a great role model for young and old, and yeah, his family values, his humility. He's a good teammate from everything you hear. He gives back to the community. Like he's just fantastic human being, which I don't know that is an easy thing to do when literally you're the most famous person on the planet, and as wealthy as you are, and all of those things. So I'm just grateful that he's Argentine.
Well, this has been an excellent interview. You've given such wonderful answers. I really appreciate you taking time out of your
Yeah.
such busy schedule.
No, thank you so much.
You can catch this interview on the WXOU Sports YouTube page. We'll get it uploaded soon. Thank you so much.